Hello everyone, welcome to Board of Numbers. Yes, it's the final episode. How has that gone by so quickly? That's right, we've talked about every single number on the dartboard, all 20 numbers, and now here we are, episode 21, and we're talking about the bull. Now, listen, I know we've had several guests on this show, and those listeners who've stuck with us the whole way have mainly heard mates of mine who love darts, but perhaps aren't experts. But the show's been crying out for an expert and a proper player. And boy, oh boy, are we lucky. And this is such a lovely way to end, for me especially, he's one of my favourite players. It's the 1988 World Champion. It's only the Limestone Cowboy. Bob Anderson is here. Bob, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Tim.
Well, it's so lovely that you would make it here to this silly little YouTube nonsense that I'm doing. What I love about you, Bob, I mean, I've always loved, ever since the first time I saw you play and you were jabbing your finger at the board whenever you got a 180 and all that, you are a man who loves darts. You still love darts, don't you? It's in your blood.
I still do. I mean, my late father was a decent player and started playing darts, showing me how to play darts when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
I mean, that's quite a few years ago now.
Yeah. Well, I read that you hit your first 180 when you were 7. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Gosh, well, if you do that, did even your dad think to himself, hang on a minute, we might have a player here?
Oh, I doubt if he ever thought that, because darts was very much on the back boiler right the way through to my late teens.
Yeah, true.
Because I played soccer, and I wasn't a bad soccer player. I wasn't good enough to be a pro. Let's put it that way. Well,
listen, you're being modest as ever. That's one of your traits, Bob. But I mean, people may not know that there's a lot of sport in your family, because in 1968, is this right? You were part of the British Olympics team for the javelin, and you only didn't go to Mexico because you broke your arm to the Olympics.
Well, I was shortlisted in training for Mexico.
Right.
And I had an unfortunate accident while throwing the blasted thing.
Right, yeah. Well, I guess it can happen. At least you don't get those sorts of injuries in darts. And the football thing, you played for Lincoln United, Guildford City, Woking and Farnborough Town. So again, you're not a slouch at that either.
Well, Woking and Farnborough Town I enjoyed, but mostly playing in the reserves, to be totally honest.
Right.
And moved back to Wiltshire, beginning of the 70s, sort of carrying a pretty major knee injury, but I ended up playing Wiltshire combination football. Wootton Bassett Town, or Royal Wootton Bassett Town as it is now.
Yeah.
And Highworth Town, and that was the end of my playing days.
And so the darts thing, it's sort of, is it like it was for all of us, except that we never became professionals, in that you're playing in a pub and you just got better and better? Is that how it was?
Pretty much. I mean, sport has played such a huge part in my life. When I had to give up soccer in 76, it left such a huge void that it had to be filled with something. And I suppose I could have gone on the golf route, although I never swung a club until a bit after that. A friend of mine was a local publican. He said, come and have a game of darts. And it all kicked off then, really. I found I was good enough to play in the league team, then the Super League team, and so on and so forth.
Amazing. I remember, and I've had the pleasure of playing against you at one of your exhibition nights, and I remember chatting to you. I love talking to people who, if you talk to someone who's been a world champion, you're talking to someone who has played at the absolute top. You were number one in the world, I think. Was it 1986 you were the world number one, or was it?
86, 87, 88.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I remember asking you about your throw, and you said something, and I remember these little tidbits from people who know how to play. You said you feel a bit like you pull the darts into the board, and I thought that's a fascinating way of looking at it.
Well, it's basically to do with the shape of the dart I use. It's a long, slim dart, and I grip it at the front. So effectively, you could say I'm pulling it to the board.
Yeah.
Less to wobble about in front of the fingers, if you like.
Well, absolutely. And this is why I don't think I've ever got beyond a certain standard, is that I always feel like I'm not doing all that much with my throw, but if I ever see any film of it, I appear to be a man who's sort of lassoing a cow or something. My arms are moving all over the place, and my wrist is doing a strange flick. I mean, so you're keeping it simple.
Coach's absolute dream, I think, too.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Now, look, I'm sure you've been gripped by this series, unlikely, but we're talking about numbers, and today being the last in the series, we're talking about the bull. Would it be fair to say, with your observations of darts, that the bull is sort of more involved now in shots by pros when you look at the PDC, etc.?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can sort of give you a potted history of this, if you like.
Yes, please.
Pre the mid-'80s, anyone who went for the bull at any stage of the game, unless it was a last resort, was considered to be a bit of a show pony, self included. In the mid-'80s, there was a sea change,
right?
Brought about largely by Bobby George.
Yeah.
He started using the bull not as an end to the means, it was the means to the end. He would look at a shot and see it differently to anybody who had ever seen it. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
In 1985, I was out in Las Vegas with the rest of the boys in August to play in the North American Open. I was in a bar somewhere downtown Las Vegas with Bobby George, one of the few bars that had a traditional dartboard, albeit a somewhat ancient version. Bobby and I were having a couple of beers and practicing, and in one game I left 82, and I walked up and planted the treble 14.
Yep.
And hit double top. And then Bobby criticised me, and I said, well, what's the matter? I hit it. He said, yeah, but did you think about what would happen if you missed with your first dart?
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, that would leave 68. He said, well, what would you do then? I said, well, if you were on a finish, I'd go 18 bull. He said, so why not do it in reverse? Go for the bull first, which is the bull and 25 is a pretty big target.
Yeah.
If you hit the bull, you've got two darts at your favourite double 16.
Yeah.
If you hit the 25, you've got a single 17 and then a double top.
Yeah. So it's almost like it's almost bringing the 25 in as another single, isn't it?
It is indeed, absolutely. But I mean, he's quite, and I stopped and thought about this, and I thought, do you know what, this old boy's right. I'm going to practice this. Well, there is a bit of a sequel to this. 6 months later, in the World Championships, I drew Bobby George in the first round, and I beat him 3-0, and I honestly don't think he took a leg.
Right.
But the interesting thing is, 7 of my 9 doubles were finished on 82.
Wow.
Well, I hit it first time, went bull 32, bang, and he gave me a dirty look. And the next leg, I left 82 and went 25-17 tops.
Yeah.
He gave me an even dirtier look. So on and so forth. I kept leaving 82 and taking it out. He called me something quite short. I didn't use many letters of the alphabet. I think it was 4.
Yes, okay.
and I beat him, and off stage afterwards he said, you so-and-so, I taught you that shot. I said, yeah, you did. I bet you regret it now.
That's amazing, isn't it? And so I guess off the back of that, 132 is also sort of like a bigger version of that, which back in the day people perhaps would have started going for treble 20 on a 132, but now they start
in
the
the old
bull.
days, that's exactly what we would have done. But thinking about it logically,
Yeah.
if you hit the 25, you won 57 bull.
Yeah.
Now, I took 132 out in a CIU cut match in southeastern London many years ago, in the 80s, though. And I went bull 32, and everybody looked at me as though they were going to lynch me. Had it been 10 years earlier, I think they would have done, but they'd seen someone do it on the telly. I suppose they thought, well, maybe it's the best way of going for it, and actually it is.
Yeah, and what about numbers like 61 and 65? Would they have? I suspect you would have gone for the outer bull back in the 80s. Before.
Yeah, mostly. I would say 61, not so much. I would definitely have gone for a 45.
Right.
And double 8, but you see it being used much more by the continental players.
Yes.
Dutch players especially use the bull and 25 an awful lot. sometimes I'm sitting there scratching my head thinking, why did they do that? And I suppose eventually it'll dawn on me that they're probably right.
And if you're on 150, actually, what about, let's talk about 125. If you're on 125, Bob, and you throw your first dart and it hits the bull, are you going to stay there?
If I hit a bull off a 125?
Yeah, if you hit the bull with your first dart and you're on 125.
I'd have no option but to stay there if I wanted to finish.
Well, if you're... No, 125, not 150.
Yeah.
Well, you could go for treble 17 for double 12, though, couldn't you? You could stray off, couldn't you?
You could do, but...
Most people stay where they are.
Bull,
right.
A left 75, you can hit a 25 and then go into the bull off the one you've already hit.
Yeah, is it true to say that that dart players like to stay where they've thrown the last one? Is that what you're sort of ideally trying to do? Is this?
I think it's probably a little bit easier to stick in one quarter of the board if you can.
Right.
Basically, again, because you've got one dart in there already, you've got a chance of bouncing off it into the target.
Yeah, and that's true, I guess, for why you see these variations on the 9-darter where they try and set it up for 144 so they can stay in the same bed for the 144, I guess, is it?
Yeah, I had 2 9-darters yesterday.
Oh, come on, Bob. This is...
I was only playing 301, Tim. I mean...
Wow. Oh, my word. Have you ever got a 9-darter in competition? Well, you must do it. You've done it in practice, of course, haven't you?
I've done it once in practice.
Right.
Once only. And that was about 2 months before my final appearance in the World Championships.
Right.
2008. I can remember Sally saying to me that I was an idiot for doing it 2 weeks in advance of someone when I might have picked up a few quid for doing it.
Yeah, well, that's funny you should say that, because when I play for my little pub team, I have a similar thing when we're all, when you're sort of all queuing up and there's an open board and there's 8 of you throwing in a queue, but the match hasn't started yet. It always makes my heart sink if I hit anything at that point. I think, well, I'm not getting that later.
It's very similar to going in the nets at the golf course. I tend to shy away from that. I think I leave my best shots in the net.
Now, look, as I say, you're still playing darts and obviously at a great quality. And the seniors tour's coming up as well. Tell us a bit about that. Is that in February, is it?
It is indeed, yeah. Circus Tavern again, and looking forward to it immensely. Don't know who I'm playing yet, but I've been able to exercise the right arm a little more than I have done in recent years. So, I'm looking forward to it. I look back and I watch videos of myself in my pomp,
yes,
and I shudder. I think, my God, I had hair and a waistline.
Well, you're still a man who looks in shape to me, Bob. Listen, you're fantastic. Thank you so much for being on Board of Numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, what a fantastic way to end this little series. It's only Bob Anderson, the great limestone cowboy.
Well, it's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to Board of Numbers. Thank you to Bob, and we'll see you at an hockey somewhere near you, in your town or something. Talk about a sentence that petered out.